Good evening to you all, and thank you for joining us tonight for our MBA information webinar. My name is Sophie Carey, and I'm the Senior Manager responsible for MBA programs here in UCD Michael Smurfit Graduate Business School. Tonight's webinar will run until 8:30 this evening, and we have a full and exciting agenda for you, which includes an Alumni Careers panel, as well as a taster session from our Leadership Development Programme. So I hope that you enjoyed this evening and will be encouraged to consider joining us here in the school in the future to do an MBA, whether that's for this coming academic year or for future years. So before we kick off, I want to introduce a number of my colleagues from UCD who will join me on the webinar this evening, and I'd like to thank them for their time tonight. So first of all, I'd like to introduce my colleagues from the admissions team, Jessica Dowling and Elaine Hearn. So there's Jessica and Elaine waving hello. Hi guys. I'm also going to introduce my colleague Ailish Lynch, and Ailish works with myself in the MBA program office as our Leadership Development Program Manager. Okay, I'd like to then introduce Adele O'Leary, who works on our marketing team. So hi Adele. And Mark Davies from our careers team will join us a little bit later. And behind the scenes, we have Paul as well, working from our IT team. So thanks to everyone for joining me. And before I talk you through this evening's agenda, I just want to highlight to you the Q&A function on Zoom. So do send us your questions throughout the evening, and myself and the team will do our best to answer those questions. We do also have some dedicated time for Q&A, excuse me, at the end of the session. So we will answer questions live also. And alternatively, you can email mba@ucd.ie now or after the session, and we'll follow up with you at that stage. So, and then one final thing to mention before I mention today's agenda is that this webinar will be recorded and uploaded to our website. And if you go to smurfitschool.ie/webinars, you'll also find a number of other recordings that are there for you to review from the last kind of number of months that may be of interest. Okay, so just to move my slide along, just to mention this evening's agenda. First of all, I'm going to give you a brief overview of MBA programs and reasons why you should consider the Smurfit MBA. Then you will have an opportunity to hear from my colleague, Dr. Ailish Lynch, who manages our Leadership Development Programme. And she will give you a brief overview of what you can expect to gain from engaging in this throughout your time in the MBA. After this, we will be joined by Fintan Ryan, and Fintan has been working with the MBA program for the last 13 years, specializing in team leadership, team coaching, negotiation, and conflict management skills. He will deliver a session entitled The Relevance of Teamwork to Your Individual MBA Journey to give you a flavor of the importance of group work during the MBA. Following Fintan's session, my colleague Mark Davies will host a career panel discussion. Mark is careers manager here in the Smurfit School, and he will be joined by a number of our MBA alumni to talk about how an MBA can bring you career success. And then for our last session of the evening, my colleague Jessica, our MBA admissions manager, will give you all the information you need on how to apply for the MBA and the admissions criteria. And finally, we'll host a Q&A session where we hope to answer a few more of your questions. So that's today's agenda. And just to briefly kind of cover a number of points then about the Smurfit MBA. Well, first of all, why come to Smurfit? We have a dedicated campus in Blackrock. We have approximately 15,000 students and 26 specialised master's programmes, including our executive education programmes, in addition to our flagship MBA options. So we also hold what's called the Triple Crown of Accreditation. And this is something we've held for approximately 20 years. AMBA, EQUIS and AACSB, and these are internationally recognized accreditations from the UK, the US and Europe. And not too many schools hold this triple crowns. We're very proud of this, and it's really a quality stamp for our programs. We also have a number of global alliances and memberships, and we're very proud of our global connections and memberships to organizations such as the Global GNAM, which is the Global Network for Advanced Management Schools. This gives our students options to kind of travel to other business schools, to do online courses, and really enhances the global dimension of our MBA. And finally, I suppose we've been consistently ranked in the top 100 of various institutional rankings from the FT, the economist, the QS, for example. So there are just some kind of reasons why you know that you'll be joining a quality program here in UCD Smurfit. In terms of the MBA itself, we have dedicated, careers support. So we have our own careers team here on the Smurfit campus. We have a dedicated MBA careers manager, and we have lots of supports and information to kind of show that doing an MBA has a real positive impact on your career. And our own MBA alumni will speak to you about that at the career panel session later on. We're also very connected to industry, and we bring in a lot of industry speakers through our different subject areas and modules that you'll be participating in, to guest speakers, to I suppose people that join our leadership development program from industry. So we're very well connected, and that's a really important part of what we do. We have a very extensive alumni network, and we have over 4,000 MBA alumni all across the world, and various alumni chapters worldwide. So it's a huge alumni network. It's the largest MBA alumni network in Ireland. And in terms of the MBA itself, we've been delivering this program, one of the oldest MBA programs in Europe, so since about 1964. In terms of our global focus, I mentioned that we're very focused on our global partnerships and kind of initiatives. And in terms of our travel modules as well, we have a number of travel module options that our students take in terms of, for example, trips to Argentina, where you look at doing business in international markets. And we also have a module where you have the opportunity to explore consultancy, for example, in Lisbon with startups and there are other opportunities like this. So we really do exploit our global opportunities for our students. And a very important point really as well is in terms of the quality of our faculty. We have the largest and most prestigious faculty base in the country, with over 100 strong faculty teaching here in the College of Business, with many accolades to their name. So you know that the quality of the program is of the utmost here in Smurfit. And a final point really to mention is experiential learning. So the MBA is very much about learning by doing, through case studies, through discussion, through conversing, through practical assignments. I mentioned our consulting module, where you work with client companies to give advice. We also have a final capstone project where you'll work with client companies in your groups to give advice on, for example, anything from entering a new industry or a new market to building a strategy. So there's a huge amount of experiential learning built throughout the MBA program, and that's what makes it really, really very practical for professional people that are coming to join this program and bring their expertise to bear and to share that with others and their classmates. Okay, so in terms of our options, in terms of what are the MBA options, we have 3 options here in the school. The first option is the full-time MBA. So you can come and do a full-time program for 12 months. It's a fully immersive learning experience. The cohort is very much diverse, international and domestic in terms of your classmates. So we have people that come from all over the world to join this class. They have given up their jobs or their career in one area, they come to join the MBA, and many times they want to pivot, they want to change and do something different. And they use the MBA as a stepping stone to help them do that. So, this program is recommended for those who wish to really immerse themselves in the experience and that are motivated by regular interaction with faculty and peers. That's our full-time program. We also have 2 part-time executive MBA options. The first one that I want to mention is our midweek executive MBA. And this program is taught on a Monday and a Friday evening for 4 hours on a Monday, 4 hours on a Monday, 4 hours on a Thursday. And this would suit somebody who, wants to combine independent study with regular interaction with faculty and peers. It's an opportunity to balance study and work, to develop yourself and accelerate your career. So this program would be recommended for senior professionals in Dublin looking to accelerate their career and expand their network. And our final option is a new option in the coming academic year is our modular MBA. This is a 2-year part-time program, and you would join us on a Friday and Saturday once a month. There are some additional dates, and all of those dates are outlined on the curriculum page of our website, smurfitschool.ie, if you search for the modular MBA. On our website, you'll also see a comparison of the different programs. So you will have more detail than I'm able to give you today. But this is a very flexible program. It would suit people who maybe aren't Dublin based, who wish to kind of travel from other parts of the country, or hopefully if travel is possible from other kind of countries in Europe. You do one module at a time. And this is a mix of face-to-face and online. It is predominantly face-to-face, but there is some online learning as well. So it is really ideal for independent learners and people who want to kind of have, maybe they're not able to come to campus every week, but it suits them to come, once a month, and they can manage their time around that. And all of the dates are laid out for you. So recommended for senior professionals looking for flexible learning with dedicated support. So that's really just a very quick summary of our 3 options. And of course, we can answer more questions later on. I'm now going to just quickly pass you over to my colleague, Ailish Lynch. And she's going to talk about the Smurfit Leadership Development Programme very briefly, and then she's going to introduce Fintan, who will deliver his session on team working. So I'll hand over to you now, Ailish. Thanks.
Thanks, Sophie. Good evening, everyone. So my name is Ailish Lynch, and I currently manage the Leadership Development Programme for the full-time and the Executive MBA programmes here at Smurfit. This evening, I'll give you a very general overview of what to expect from the Smurfit Leadership Development Programme, and it'll take approximately 5 minutes. After my presentation, I'll hand you over to Fintan Ryan of Interactive Solutions, and Fintan is a key contributor to our Leadership Development Programme. I'm also very happy to take any questions that you may have at the Q&A session at the end of this evening's session. So the vision of the Smurfit Leadership Development Programme is to develop self-aware, insightful and influential global leaders. And the programme is integrated throughout your MBA and helps to develop the skills required for effective leadership. The Leadership Development Programme combines 3 core elements of leadership, so at an individual level, a team level, and at the organisational level. So through a series of workshops and one-to-one executive coaching and self-reflection assignments, you'll gain an understanding of how you interact and approach situations and communicate with others. On the team level then, so each semester, students are placed into diverse teams that focus on understanding the social and emotional intelligence of others and improving your own relationship management skills. And so this also forms the basis of effective teamwork and group projects, which again is very much a key feature of the Smurfit MBA. Throughout the programme, you'll also be introduced to and develop the skills required to lead beyond the MBA, so in your current or in your future organisation. You'll also have the opportunity to attend a monthly MBA masterclass series, which is facilitated by industry experts in key areas such as sales and selling, digital marketing, project management, amongst others. Another unique feature of our Smurfit Leadership Development Programme are the MBA clubs. And the MBA clubs are led by MBA students for MBA students. And this gives you the platform to learn and to network in your area of interest with industry experts. So for example, our current and recent MBA clubs include fintech, sustainability, entrepreneurship, and gender equality, amongst others. So while much of the focus of your MBA is on the academic programme, the Leadership Development Programme is a key component of your own personal and professional development while here at Smurfit. It has been designed to take you out of your comfort zone and to give you the skills and the confidence to make brave and informed decisions. So throughout your MBA journey, you'll have ample opportunity to develop your leadership skills in respect of organisation, teams and self, and which you will take beyond the MBA. So I'm going to hand you now over to Fintan Ryan, who will give you an insight into one aspect of the Leadership Development Programme. And Fintan's session will focus on the relevance of teamwork and team leadership to your own individual journey. So thank you for your time, and over to you, Fintan.
Eilish. The subject matter, my topic, I suppose, is highlighted there on my slide, the relevance of teamwork to your individual MBA journey. So just to kind of highlight what's going to look at in that space, I suppose what I do tend to look at is, as Eilish highlighted, I suppose, teams and leadership being a key element around the program. I'm 13 years, I suppose, as delivering this program. Is tweaked it along the way, and we've collaboratively designed the program, I suppose, that makes it the best possible experience for students who are actually undertaking the MBA. Essentially, what we try to do is to accelerate the team performance on your journey, so that actually, as the team starts their journey, they actually get out of the blocks very, very quickly and work very, very effectively together. So my input this evening is going to last about 25 minutes. I'm going to have 3 core elements to it. The first, I'm going to explain the relevance of teamwork to your individual MBA journey, as the title is. The second element around that, I'm going to share some of the experiences over the last 13 years of how teams within the MBA program have worked together and some of the challenges that they've encountered along the way. And the third element is I'm trying to, I suppose, highlight your own individual style and your communication style, so that actually you gain an understanding of how you impact both positively and negatively in your team environment. That's kind of a little bit interactive insofar as I'm going to kind of just talk you through a kind of a communication style profile in that space. So just to take you through that, I suppose the ultimate thing I find straight away is when people are starting their MBA journey, I suppose they approach it similarly to the picture that's on the screen there, where each individual has their own goals of what they want to achieve out of their MBA. And that's natural. When you actually sit down, when you actually make the decision, when you're coming on the journey, you have a specific goal for yourself. However, I suppose one of the things I would actually say specifically around the Smurfit Business School is that they actually place a huge emphasis on the team part. And I've seen where individuals have struggled a little bit because they actually haven't had that paradigm shift of actually embracing the whole element of the teams and teamwork. So very much the start of the journey in September is we do a lot of work in around teams and teamwork, to create the first set of study teams, so that the teams create a team charter that enables them to get out of the blocks very, very quickly to start their journey in that space. And I've seen where teams have become very, very, very effective very, very quickly, because they make that shift in their emphasis around saying, yes, I have my own individual goals, but I actually recognize that actually it takes a team to actually get into that space. In the utopic world of teams and teamwork, I suppose what you would actually do is you'd self-select the team that you want to work with. But actually, we never have that choice in life, either in work teams or in study teams. So people are grouped together randomly, and then what you actually need to see is what's the dynamic that's actually happening in the group. How can I best work in that team to get the best out of that team? What's the contribution that I need to make to that? And what's the energy level that I need to put into that phase? So a huge part of our reflection and journey here is, I suppose, is working to our strengths. So there's a number of exercises that I would do throughout the program around getting us to look at delighting in differences, seeing how your team strengths can complement others. So you'll actually see in lots of different teams, some people are really, really good at the big picture, whereas other people are very, very good at the attention to detail. Some people are good at creating ideas. Some people are good at taking the ideas and putting them into workable actions. Some people are good at gelling the team together. Some people are good at analyzing large amounts of information. And there's even some people who are actually very good at knowing someone who knows someone and get it for half price. And you have that mix and match within the context of teams and teamwork. And that's what we've been trying to encourage and get individuals to embrace very, very early on, I suppose, that part of the team journey. You know, there's lots of books written on teams every year. There's lots of theories in around teams. As part of the MBA reflection on teams and teamwork, we would investigate some theories not overkill on that space. But this is one by a guy called John Adair, who wrote a book called Effective Teamwork. And he said, well, there's 3 variables at play. So the first thing at play is each individual. So each individual comes, they probably have one question that they ask straight up is, what's in this for me? What are they going to get out of the situation? Then you have the team, how the team will work together. And the third is, what's the task in hand? So if you apply that to the MBA journey, I suppose very, very quickly, you actually say, well, the task in hand is the assignments that we actually need to input as part of the program. But then in each individual needs to sit into that space. But the emphasis here, I suppose, is the team and the teamwork. How does the team work together? How does the team communicate? How does the team problem solve? How does the team make decisions? And it's probably unlike other work teams that you encounter, is that there's usually a structure or a hierarchy within the team structure, whereas you're going to be working in a peer group, and sometimes that lack of hierarchy creates a struggle for the team to work effectively. And that part of our journey, I suppose, is working that out, is getting the team and the individuals to reflect on the individual contribution, how the team works together, and how we can actually achieve the task. I suppose ultimately what you're looking for there is the utopic state of the individual needs are met, the team works effectively together to try to achieve the task. So that, I suppose, brings us the definition around teams and teamwork. And we all know this is a group of individuals collectively working together to try to achieve a task or a goal. But as the image illustrates there, I suppose, you could actually see that perhaps some people are working a little bit harder than others. And that's one of the challenges that always comes up within the MBA teams, is that the perception or around the equity of workload. And it's something that sometimes can lead to conflict within the team. But actually, it's that part of the team discussing and understanding and actually putting a plan in place as to how they're going to actually manage conflict of the team usually means that those teams become quite effective. And it's a kind of a structured step journey that we actually do with the teams to enable them to actually grow, develop, and start to deal with the issues that will naturally arise in the context of teams and teamwork. So I suppose critically, for study teams to be effective, they need that level of commitment and that buy-in. It's like the first slide that I showed you, that paradigm shift. So I know that each of you individually want to come on your individual journey, but actually the team part, or the emphasis of teams and teamwork, is such a fundamental, important part of the MBA program in Smurfit. We sometimes talk about this team effectiveness profile. This forms a strong basis around the team chartering piece that we do. The model is triangular in shape, which I know is stating the obvious, but actually at the foundation blocks, you see that the relationships being the key element around that. At the apex, it is the piece around, I suppose, what's the goal? What are we trying to achieve here? In its simplest format is to actually get the qualification or to get the associated grades to that. But each individual comes to any team, and they're probably thinking they have their own individual goals, and part of effective teamwork is being able to articulate that. We normally fulfill 3 or 4 or 3 roles in a team environment. One is our functional expertise, I suppose, the area of expertise that we bring to the table. The second is the team roles that we actually look at, how we actually interact in a team environment, what's the strengths that we bring, what's the forgivable weaknesses probably. And the third role that we actually often bring in a team environment is the role of leadership. And that's not always positional leadership, but around leadership behavior. So if the part of the development throughout the MBA program is your leadership development, it's key to actually be able to rotate that leadership within the study teams. And then in the next layer down, I suppose we talk about the processes, the hard processes being the way of how we function as a team together, or what's the systems of procedure. But the softer ones can sometimes be how we communicate together, what do our meetings look like, how do we problem solve together, how do we innovate together, how do we actually manage conflict as a team together. And then fundamentally at the bottom layer there, we have the relationships piece. So you'll actually often see here is how do we actually interact as a team together, or how do we actually interact with other study teams, or how do we interact beyond the boundaries of the team. So very often when we work with teams, I would actually say that on this end side of the spectrum, you actually have teams are usually quite clear as to what their goals are, what their functional roles are, I suppose what their the processes they use are, and then what their ultimately how the relationships are. But actually the shadow area, and that's the kind of how we really work together as a team. I suppose that's the bit that we try to flesh out in when we develop the teams and teamwork in the Smurfit. Which probably takes me to the piece that I'm just going to focus on today with you is in around the team roles. And I'm just going to do an exercise with yourselves here. Really encourage you just to kind of take out a sheet of paper, and I'm going to get you to look at your own communication style here. So I suppose essentially where I'm coming from in this is when we communicate, our tendency is that we communicate really, really effectively with 25% of the population. In other words, people who are like-minded to ourselves, and the other 75% don't get us. So really this exercise is one that I would do as part of the team development at the start of your journey, I suppose, is understanding yourself and then understanding others, and then your ability to flex your style in different situations to get the best out of the situation. So just to encourage you in this, you can actually do this in yourself, is just to take out a sheet of paper, and not very high tech this, but actually to create 4 columns, 1, 2, 3, and 4. There are 14 questions that I'm going to put up on the screen briefly and get you to tick each of the as to where the answer is in each of the columns based on where you think you are yourself. So essentially what you can do is, as I go down through question 1, you know, you might be in column 1 and etc. Go down through the 14 questions. And then I'm just going to talk you through that. Just kind of it's a takeaway, I suppose, from today's session or from this evening's session. So first question up here is, and go with your gut reaction. That's what I encourage you in that space is, what do you talk about? And I suppose what you want to achieve, your dreams and aspirations, your feelings and experiences, or facts and figures. And again, I just encourage you to actually just tick the column that you actually think that best suits you, or that you think you are in that space. Second question is, how fast do you speak? Very fast, slowly, or moderate? And again, it's getting you to think about yourself. Gut reaction on this one. It's not always a case of over analyzing it. The third one down is, how do you prefer to dress? Is it classic or formal you describe yourself as? Bold colors, informal, muted colors or casual, or conservative and businesslike? And then the next one, the fourth question there is, how do you tend to communicate? Are you direct and to the point? Are you tend to be lively and excitable? Are you thoughtful and casual? Or are you specific and concise? Again, just take a choice and just fill it into the column. Then the next one is, what encourages you? Is it action? Is it recognition? Is it involvement? Or is it quality of delivery? Next question I'll ask then is, what switches you on? Is it pressure or change? Is it stimulation and fun? Is it togetherness or support? Or is it accuracy and information? Next question is, how do you express anger? Are you impatient, aggressive? Are you easily frustrated and perhaps explosive? Are you gentle but gets flustered? Or are you slow to anger with a kind of a rational approach in that space? The next one is, how do you like to work? Do you like to juggle many different balls? I suppose several things at once. Do you like the freedom? I suppose I get easily bored. Do you like to cooperate and help others? Do you like to prefer to do one thing at a time? So just to think about that. And again, how fast do you like to work? Very fast at a whirlwind pace, quite fast. Are you rarely in a hurry, or are you very methodical in what you do? And then to think about, what does your work area look like? Is it organized chaos? Do you have interesting things and gadgets? Or you have mementos and souvenirs? Or do you have references at your fingertips, or are very, very tidy? Again, just choose one of those, which you think you are. Go down to the next one. What do you dislike? Wasting time, reinventing the wheel, confrontation, or being wrong. And the last few then that we start to move towards, I suppose, is how do you behave in a group environment? Do you like to be the leader? Do you like to be the center of attention? Do you like to feel included? And do you like to give information? And then we go to what do you want to be appreciated for? Productivity, contribution, your help, or your sound judgment. And the final one, what do you respond well to? Being shown respect, being looked up to, being appreciated, or being trusted with responsibility. And I know it's a whistle-top tour to actually get you to reflect and to think on them very, very quickly in that space. But actually, essentially, what you actually have is 14 questions and the answers on each of the columns there. And what I'll just encourage you to do then is to total the columns according to how you actually circled them. And as you do that, I'm going to give you a brief explanation of perhaps the communication style, where your strengths and maybe your forgivable weaknesses are in that space. So, throughout your MBA journey, I suppose you will do lots of different psychometric profiles, and there's Belbin team roles, there's DISC profiling, there's insights, there's 16PF. There's a multitude of them out there, and I'm sure that some of you have done them already, I suppose. This is one that I actually use a combination of different ones. There is there's a book called Social Styles, and then there's another book called Why Teams Don't Work. And then there is a book called Surrounded by Idiots. And I suppose what I've drawn upon is from these books to actually just kind of share a profile around the communication style that you have. So I'll go through this quite clearly and quickly, I suppose, to give you an idea of perhaps what your own style is and what the strengths are that you actually bring into that space. So there are some people who are quite deliberate in their style of communication. In other words, they logically, sequentially think things through. On the other end of that spectrum, there are people who are quite spontaneous in their style of communication. In other words, there's a short synapse between it entering the brain and it rolling off the tip of the tongue. On the other side, there are people who are quite indirect in their style of communication. And then there are people who are quite direct in their style of communication. Deliberate, direct, they have a tendency that they logically, sequentially think things through, and then they deliver it with a lump hammer, sometimes between the eyes. These are what we refer to as drivers. They drive the information forward. Deliberate, indirect, they logically, sequentially think things through, but sometimes they're a little bit more subtle in their delivery. So these we would often refer to as analyticals. Then you have people who are spontaneous and indirect. They tend to verbalize out loud. These we sometimes refer to as amiables, or sometimes the word is related. In other words, they are relators. And finally, we have direct and spontaneous. These are usually in your face and in your space, and these we often refer to as expressives. And if you leave those 4 words up there, the tendency is that people will forget them quite quickly. So I say, hey, imagine if there were animals, what animals they would be. So if there were animals, this would probably be a panther. The analytical would probably be an owl. The dolphin would probably be a relator. And the expressive, if it was to be an animal, it would probably be a peacock. So it kind of conjures up an image in your mind straight away as to what your individual style is. So words that come to mind when you actually think of an owl is old, observer, they're a hunter, they tend to be solitary, or they hang around alone. Words that come to mind when you think of a panther is fast, furious, dangerous, pouncing, tend to be hunters as well. Dolphins is sociable, communicative, hang around in groups, and peacocks is flamboyant, colorful, egotistical, noisy. So they're the kind of words that come to mind. If I relate that back to people, and let's just think about people in a team environment, if I actually say around the owls tend to be focused on facts and figures on the bottom line. They're brilliant listeners, but you'd never know it. If I'm delivering a training program, you could die on your feet all day, and on the way out the door, the owl will turn to you and say, I really enjoyed the program, thanks very much. And you're kind of saying, I didn't see that, okay? Because their tendency is that they don't tend to emote too much. So when they're actually observing you, it's very, very passive in how they actually look at you. How do they like to make decisions? Slowly, methodical, organized in a very, very structured, factual way. So a lot of the time they will take the problem away with them, which can be problematic in a team environment because they actually see that they actually work away as isolates on their own. So they need to be drawn out of their shell at times. Panthers, they tend to put the ball in the net. They actually are juggle lots of different balls in many different ways, like to work in a very fast sort of a way. And they're quite comfortable with challenge. So they will come out of a room and say, Jesus, that was great. We had a really robust conversation in that space. Someone else come out of that same room and say, that was the worst day of my life. I got savaged in there. Half an hour later, the Panther will put their head around the corner and say, you go for a pint. So they don't hold on to it. It's a full frontal assault, but then it's actually gone. So again, they bring real strength into the team because of that dynamic piece, but also the downside can actually have a negative impact in the team. The Dolphins are the ultimate team player. How's the wife and the kids and the family and the granny? They're genuinely interested in people. They create a huge level of empathy. They actually are very, very understanding of how and helpful in a team environment. Sometimes they're not assertive enough because they don't ask for their need. And finally, the peacocks. What do they bring? High energy, high creativity, interest in everything and everyone, feel like gold will kill their spontaneity, like to work in a very unstructured sort of a way, and then they're bored. So they all have certain strengths, they all have certain limitations. However, if you only had a team of owls, what would happen? What would happen would be paralysis by analysis. You would have the most wonderful plan, it would never go live because you would be searching for perfection all the time. Being right is a core value of the owl. If you had a group of panthers in a room together, you'd have a lot of bloodshed, full frontal assaults. In other words, you'd actually have a lot of conflict in that. So sometimes that can be quite destructive in the team environment. If you have a group of dolphins in a room together, you'll have group hugs, high fives, cups of tea. But actually, you have a great level of harmony, but they actually mightn't get their assignments in on time. And finally, if you have the peacocks in a room, you'll actually have a lot of noise, perhaps not too much output in relation to that. Strengths, weaknesses in all of them, if you had an overemphasis on anyone. So what you're looking for is the perfect balance within the team, an awareness of delighting in differences so that you actually embrace the differences that exists in a team. So you're probably thinking about, okay, where am I in relation to this myself? So in other words, the message, I suppose, is working to our strengths and the strengths of our team based on the communication styles. But our tendency is that we work best with people who are like-minded to ourselves. So when you start to work in a team environment, it does require us to actually compromise in some way. So based on the questionnaire that we ran through there, I suppose, get to reflect and to think about your own particular style in this space. Column 1 is panther, column 2 is peacock, column 3 is dolphin, and column 4 is owl. So it is a case of you're not going to be only one, you can be a combination of other ones. But it's sometimes not only what your style is, but actually what the other person's style is and how you actually embrace this. It's quite interesting as an exercise if you go away and you go back into the work environment tomorrow to actually see what your style is versus other people's style in that space. It can be quite enlightening to actually see, and the negative and the positive impact that you will actually have based on your individual style in there. The one thing I would always say when I do this as an exercise, and this is an abbreviated version of a longer questionnaire that I usually do as part of the of an input as part of the MBA teams, is that I should always come with a government health warning, because based on you answering 25 or 14 questions, you've categorized how you communicate. And I think you have to accept that you're a little bit more complex than that. It also is inherently flawed is because you filled it in about yourself. It's quite interesting to slide the questionnaire across the table who sits opposite you of an evening, and they may have a different impression of how you actually communicate in a team environment. So again, I suppose the messaging of that, and it's kind of like the third element of the takeaway from is delighting in differences, working to the strengths that exist within your own team, and understanding that, I suppose, it's that part around understanding ourselves in terms of the impact that we actually have in a team environment, but also understanding others and what they actually bring to the party. In the MBA teams, the most effective teams that I've observed over the last 13 years is teams that really embrace those differences and actually work to the strengths that they have as a team and actually articulate and discuss those as they go. So what does the journey look like, I suppose, in relation to the team development process that we actually have put in place as part of the MBA program? So usually step one is the experiential learning process. We happen to use the outdoors on campus, or this year we actually have a virtual experiential process there. And that part of that is undertaking tasks together and reviewing the tasks together, looking at the whole concept of effective teamwork, looking at some of the team theories, but ultimately we actually create the team charter in that. That's step one, and we actually do that with all the groups of the MBAs. The full-time MBAs, they usually undertake step 2 and 3. I know that the executive MBA have a tendency that they actually do the review of their team charter themselves along the journey. Step 2 is very much around revisiting and looking at some of the team skills, looking at our communication styles, giving feedback to each other, seeing where we are on our journey, and I suppose updating our team charter. And then the third element around that is, the third part of it is looking at where the team is, how the team manages conflict, and essentially we streamline the team charter. And that's kind of done over a 100-day period from September usually into November, so that the teams this first set of study teams are become very, very effective. So that kind of gives you an overview of, I suppose, the importance of the teams and teamwork. Some of the theories and how they apply to actually the actual workings of teams during the MBA program. And the third element, I suppose, is kind of like just getting you to think individually how you impact both positively and negatively in a team environment. So ultimately, I suppose what you're trying to do is to build that part around what I would term emotionally intelligent teams. So creating a self-awareness for the team, but actually then the team starts to self-manage itself. So it becomes more efficient, more effective in how it works. Also, social awareness, I suppose, is how we individually impact in the team environment. Ultimately, I suppose, like the triangular model around, I suppose, the foundations of real teamwork is that piece around relationship management. In other words, how effectively we work together, what do the relations look like, and how can we actually build and grow in that space. So that's a whistle-top tour, I suppose, of a kind of an input in around where the teams and teamwork is. I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you very much. I'm going to hand you back over to Sophie.
Thanks so much, Fintan, for that really interesting session and really insightful this evening. So thank you so much. And so thanks everyone for joining us again. And for any of you who've joined us a little bit after the start, just a reminder that you can use the Q&A function on Zoom and send us your questions. And we have questions coming in at the moment. And we'll do our best to answer those questions. And we have some dedicated time at the end of our webinar also to kind of chat through, myself and my colleagues, some of the questions and answers that you've sent us this evening. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the next section of this evening, and I'd like to introduce my colleague, Mark Davies. And Mark is our MBA Careers Manager here in the Smurfit School. And Mark will host tonight's MBA Alumni Careers panel discussion. So Mark, hi there, and over to you.
Thanks, Sophie. Hopefully you can all see and hear me okay. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Awful weather, so there's probably nothing better to do anyway. I've just got one slide to talk to you about the career services that we offer to our MBA students here at UCD Smurfit. And then I'm delighted to introduce our alumni who will be taking part in our panel session this evening. Here I'm just sharing, it's quite a busy slide. I'm going to pick a couple of things out of it. Probably should introduce myself properly first. So I'm the MBA Careers Manager. I would look after the careers program for the full-time MBA, and I would also support any executive and modular MBAs who are looking for new opportunities as well. So I'm just going to pick out a couple of differences maybe between how we work with full-time and exec. So obviously we do a lot of what you would expect a career service to do in terms of helping students find their next job opportunity, whether that's external or maybe moving up in their organization. With a full-time MBA, of course, everyone's given up a job and they'll be looking for a new job at the end of the year. So we have quite a structured program that we take people through. And there's a couple of things that we do that are, I'd say, maybe unique, or at least not that common in career services, that get good feedback from the students. One of them is we allocate every full-time MBA a senior alumni mentor for the second half of the program. And that person would really, typically they're from an industry that the student is interested in, and they would be able to give them that industry insight and also kind of coach them through some of that job search process alongside our team. And we would also bring in recruiters and again alumni to give our students interview practice. It's really one feature of career services at a business school, and particularly on an MBA, that might be quite different to what your experience would have been at undergraduate level, is how much we rely on and we lean on our alumni volunteers to support the students. And typically that's giving them maybe inside insights to their industry or their employer, and potentially also helping to refer them into opportunities that might suit them at their organisation as well. With regards to the executive programs, of course, not everyone is looking for a new job there. And if they do, then maybe they'll look in the first year or second year or as a recent alumnus. And so we offer more of a kind of career service there rather than a structured program, which people can kind of opt into and ask for whenever they need it. So Sophie, I think, mentioned earlier that typically, people would maybe opt for the full-time MBA option because they're really looking for that career change. And that's something that year on year, we see that program delivering. So typically over 90% of our graduates would be changing either their function or their industry or even their country that they worked in from before the MBA to after the MBA. And some on the executive MBA might also do that, but it's typically a little bit lower. Often they're using that to kind of maybe progress up within the organisation they're in at the moment, or at least within the same sector or function. And I think that's probably all I wanted to say on career services at the moment. Of course, do pop any questions in the Q&A if you have any for me, and I'll answer them after our panel session. But I'll stop sharing my screen there and invite our alumni panelists to turn their cameras on and to join me for the panel session we have this evening. So like I said, we're always asking our alumni to give back, so I'm really grateful for their time. They've got very busy careers, I know that. And maybe if I could just start by asking you all to just very quickly introduce yourselves, who you are, who your current employer is, and what your role involves. And John, I can see you front and center in my screen, so maybe if I'll start with you.
Yep, no problem. Hi, everyone. Very, very happy to be here and part of this evening's session. It's been very insightful so far. So I'm currently a manager with EY. I sit within transformation execution, which sits within business consultant, within EY. I've had experience to date in financial services, in power and utilities, and I'm currently working in the healthcare sector. So I'm project manager of the COVID-19 modeling response team to a large organization in the healthcare sector. And I suppose we have 5 live models with an array of capabilities, everything from demand and capacity to test and demand to a fully integrated service model. And I suppose what we're trying to do is move away, I suppose, from yearly planning to continuous planning to data-led problem statements to data-led decision-making, and I suppose support the organization in long-term strategic and operational decision-making. So when you throw the largest cyber attack in the history of the state into the mix, you could say we're reasonably busy at work at the minute.
So John, you only graduated from the MBA a couple of years ago, but it sounds like you've already had about 15 years experience since then.
It feels it too.
Very good. Maybe we'll hear a bit more about that later. Before I forget, actually, if you have any questions for any of our panelists or all of our panelists, do pop them into the Q&A and we'll answer some of those later. And Shri, you graduated even more recently, so maybe I'll come to you and ask you to introduce yourself.
Yep. Hi, Mark. Hi, everyone. Hope everyone's keeping safe and healthy at this moment. My name is Lakshmi Kunath, and I presently work as a commercialization manager for CEDAR. So CEDAR is Ireland's Artificial Intelligence Research Centre, and the role specifically works as a role connecting the business side and the technical side. So I help companies understand and start their artificial intelligence or digitalization journey and take care of we have around 100 industry members right now. And like Mark mentioned, I did my MBA in the year 2019 to 2020. And prior to that, my background was as a software engineer in the health tech sector. So I completed my bachelor's in computer science and engineering in 2015 and worked full-time for Cerner Healthcare Solutions until 2019. And just a bit of why I decided to do an MBA was to predominantly move into a strategic role within tech. And I think UCD MBA was kind of the binding agent, bind my technical skills as well as the transferable soft skills, which help me presently in my role right now as a commercialization manager.
Thank you so much, Shri, and it's good to see you again. Great. So Shri and John graduated from a full-time MBA quite recently, but we have another couple of panelists who studied the executive MBA with us and graduated a little longer ago. I won't say exactly when. Marjorie, if I can start with you, maybe.
Hi there, everybody. Thank you for having me. Apologies if I have internet issues. Yes, basically, my background was originally investment banking, corporate finance, M&A. I come from New York, US, and I was transferred here to Europe a few years ago, actually many years ago. But prior to that, I had done an ALMS program in the US, and I was going to do my MBA as part of that program, but I had put a hold on that because I got transferred to Europe. And then it's been on my to-do list for many years before I took the MBA to do the MBA. Yes, my background's transactions. I work for Indeed right now. I've moved post-MBA into a tech firm covering and overseeing their global transactions. I cover for Europe, Asia, and the US now in terms of our transactions. And I provide advisory on our M&A acquisitions as well. So that's my background. That's where I am today. And obviously, having come from a finance background, I thought the MBA was a great option for me in terms of like improving on my soft skills as well, and expanding and just getting to know a little bit more of other industries in the market as opposed to just finance and investment banking. So it was a great experience, even though it was a long time ago. It feels like yesterday.
That's probably because it was an intense experience that you don't forget. And last but not least, Jay, if I could ask you to introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Hello, everybody. My name is Ger Perdesat, and I lead Microsoft's technology strategy for our Western European division. So I lead an organization of approximately 180 technology strategists who advise our largest organizations in Europe on their technology strategy. I've been with Microsoft approximately 10 years. I actually joined Microsoft while I was halfway through my executive MBA. So it was great to experience the MBA both pre the change and post the change.
Thanks a lot, Jay. And I know Marjorie and Shri, you've already started talking about this, but if you do all kind of cast your mind back to when you made that decision or you were thinking about possibly doing an MBA, maybe if you can tell me kind of a little bit more about why you decided to do it and why you felt maybe that was the right time in your career. Maybe it was a practical reason, or you just thought that was the best opportunity you had to take advantage of the MBA. And Joe, maybe I'll come to you first on this.
Yeah, absolutely, Mark. Certainly in my particular situation, I'd been thinking about it for maybe 18 months anyway. I'd worked in financial services for approximately a decade, and certainly at that time, it was a very tough place in the market to be. Ireland was undergoing a very, very deep recession and restructuring of our financial ecosystem at that time. So I made the decision that, I felt that the MBA would give me a transferable skill set that I would be able to take to another industry. And, that really proved to be the case. In fact, it was only halfway through that process that I was approached by Microsoft to join their organization. And really one of the things that attracted attracted me to them was exactly, the idea that the executive MBA would give individuals coming from another sector a multitude of different skills and also different sectoral experiences to bring to the table.
And if I could just ask a follow-up question there, did you find it difficult to change during the MBA, or was that actually kind of a big positive?
Well, I think when you're already immersed in, let's say, the workload associated with the MBA, it kind of puts everything else into perspective as well. But I think additionally as well, it also allows you a different context in terms of going to a new organization and thinking about it and how, its business models and how it's structured in a very, very different way. So I actually found it beneficial to starting in a new organization, and I think particularly allowing me to ask smarter questions more frequently, being comfortable with not knowing the answer. I think that's one of the great skills that the MBA has taught me.
Thanks, Jay. And Marjorie, I think you said you were thinking about an MBA for a while before you actually made the leap. But what kind of made you sort of decide to do it when you did, and what were you kind of primarily looking to get out of it?
Yeah, I have a really colorful background on that one. Yeah, so when I had applied to an MBA program years ago, and I had deferred, and then eventually when I came to Ireland, I decided UCD is the one for me. But interesting enough, I was working back in an international position, I was traveling a lot. And when I got into the MBA during the week orientation, I found out I was pregnant during orientation week. This could be a unique story. And I was debating whether, okay, do I put it off again or do I do it? I said, you know what? I have 9 months. I'm going to do this. I'm going to go for it. I was still working and traveling, and I was doing all my meetings with my peer groups over the phone back then because we didn't have Zoom over 10 years ago. So that was a very interesting experience for me. I had my child. And I was doing, I managed to get all my exams done before I had the baby in May. And then I came back in September and I was pregnant again. So I think I'm the only person in the MBA program that had 2 babies in 2 years during the part-time program. And I managed, and I did quite well. So, so if I can do it, this is to tell everybody, you can do it for sure.
Well, I think, yes, anyone concerned about how to balance other commitments with the MBA, I think that's that trumps that. Yeah. Although, funnily enough, I don't think it's that uncommon in experience, because I'm pretty sure the last one of these panels that I managed, someone was saying they had their wife had twins or triplets, or 2 sets of twins possibly during their executive MBA. It was something crazy like that. And yeah, so I think there are people do have a lot of things to cope with during it. So, and sorry, I'm now going to probably throw you under the bus here, John. You've not got a story like that, but what was
my background? Quickly became very boring there. Yeah, so I suppose my background was a little unorthodox to the MBA, but I suppose that's the joy of the MBA, isn't it? It's those diverse backgrounds and diverse experience that you bring everything together, and you really get a refined individual out the back end of the MBA. So I actually started as a secondary school teacher, was teaching physical education and biology for 4 years, and fantastic experience that I thoroughly enjoyed, found it extremely rewarding, found it very challenging in many respects. And I suppose I came to a point where, albeit very rewarding, I was looking for something different. And I suppose my family at the time was heavily involved in business, and I always found myself gravitating in that direction. After a huge amount of research, and I would encourage everyone to do the research. And once you look into the Smurfit MBA, I think, similar to myself, you'll be reassured that you landed in the right spot. But do take the time to research it, to reach out to myself and colleagues on the call this evening, and further alumni as well. More than happy to pick up the phone and have a quick call and discuss the intricacies and the different modules that's involved in the program. As my father always says, measure twice, cut once. So definitely do your due diligence on that. And for me, I suppose, as Sophie and as Mark has already said, the executive MBA is very much focused about people who are trying to accelerate their career, move from manager to senior manager to director. For me, I was trying to make that complete pivot in career, making that transition. And the MBA done exactly what it said in the tin. It really facilitated that. It accelerated my development, having made that transition, and really couldn't speak highly enough of from my own personal point of view. As Sophie said, that stepping stone and that transition from the world of education to the world of business.
Yeah, and obviously you had a big career pivot. I mean, just talking about, you talked about how you kind of changed industry during the executive MBA. You really sort of changed virtually everything about your career post full-time MBA. How did the MBA kind of help you maybe land the job?
I think the MBA does a number of different things. I think number one, as Ger has already alluded to, I think it gives you the knowledge, the understanding, and the confidence, you know, that you can go and excel and deliver in the world of business. So I think that's first and foremost, and because it really broadens that business acumen and that really holistic approach, that you understand the dependencies within each of the pillars in an organization. So I think that's number one. Number two, I think senior management in a lot of the large organizations in Ireland in particular definitely recognize the value and the caliber of student that comes through an MBA, and particularly from an Irish perspective, the Smurfit MBA. So I think that's two. And I think the third one then, and arguably the most important, is the alumni network. And I've already kind of touched on this a little bit, but you know, for anyone who's looking to reach out to that alumni network, see how broad it actually is, you know, I challenge you to pick any organization and put a filter on Smurfit MBA, and we will have somebody senior in that organization who's not just sitting there. They're more than happy to have a quick call, have an email, whatever it might be, to explore where you are in your career and tell you about their journey, and maybe give you a steer on, you know, best course of action, next steps, and, you know, maybe support you in your referral if you're interested in entering into that particular organization. So I think learning's number one. Two, it's the recognition across the board. And third is that real, the broad scope of that alumni network. I think it's just fantastic, and I continue to tap into on a regular basis.
Thanks, John. And not to say that the alumni at the institution I used to work for were not helpful, but I've definitely found since I've been working here how willing to give of their time our alumni network are, and it makes my job a lot easier, I have to say that. And Shri, obviously you've got a slightly different story, because of course you came to Ireland to join us. How did you end up at Smurfit?
Yeah, so I was working as a senior software engineer in a health tech company, and it was quite good. I loved it. I always wanted to do computer science engineering, and I really enjoyed my work, but I got the chance to lead a couple of projects when I was close to like the third or fourth year working there. And I realized that I was quite interested in all the thinking that goes behind as well, the strategic approach that's taken when a project gets shelved out. And I worked in health tech, so there were a lot of projects where a lot of thought goes into it. A lot of thought goes into a digitalization movement in a sector as critical as healthcare. And that was quite interesting. And I wanted to venture out more into those kind of roles. And once I got exposed to that, my usual coding became slightly boring for me. So that is when I started looking at opportunities where I could move to a role where there is still, I still have a technical, there's still a part that is still technical, but at the same time, you know, there's a bit more of strategy and business involved. So that's when I decided to do an MBA. And how did I end up in Dublin? So I was researching for universities that were, first of all, globally ranked, the top 100 universities in the world for an MBA, and then trying to narrow them down by the return on investment. And that is one point I want to point out, that UCD has a very high return on investment for the MBA as compared to the amount of money you put in as fees and the kind of salaries you get post your MBA. That, along with the fact that Dublin is slowly becoming like the technical hub. There are a lot of famous technical companies that are moving their European headquarters to Dublin. So that was something that appealed to me personally, coming from a technical background as well. And after narrowing down on Ireland, UCD is the best for the MBA in Ireland. And I would definitely, you know, stand by that, because I feel UCD delivered exactly what it promised. It wasn't a lot of fluff that they kind of promised, you know, but for UCD, I think with the leadership development program in specific, that is something that I think helped me a lot to kind of give structure to my skills to move from a technical to a not so technical role. So I think that's how I ended up in UCD in 2019.
Yeah, thank you, Shri. And I guess to say to anyone out there, it's quite common actually. We have people coming from non-business background, from sort of specialists, maybe technical or healthcare backgrounds or engineering, and kind of making that transition into business. And I'm going to ask one quick follow-up question, and then we'll take some questions to the audience. And only because, Shri, I know you told me, I can't believe how much of my MBA I'm already using in my job, given that you haven't been there that long. So maybe tell me a little bit more about that, what you're using.
Yeah, I think when I started the MBA, the first semester you have your financial reporting, you have your corporate finance subjects, and you're like, yeah, okay, there's a lot of things happening and I may or may not use it in the role when it comes up. But I think after I started working, I realized the sheer amount of the elements of MBA that is there in a day-to-day business, whether it is talking to clients, whether it is managing the opportunities that come from different either MNCs or SMEs, and the way you kind of have to balance out the things, the way you present to the clients, the way you carry yourself, the confidence that you get to say, like I think somebody mentioned it earlier, the confidence to say, I don't know that, and that's okay. And I think that is something that was, for me, purely from the MBA. And for me as well, coming from a purely technical background, there was a lot of learnings from the MBA to kind of see business, the holistic view of business, to see what the clients are expecting. How do you do stakeholder management? How do you ensure that you convey a message to a technical person in a particular manner and to a business person in a different manner, because they're two different target audiences at that point of time. So I think those are the things that I use on a day-to-day basis right now at my role. And it's great. And like I mentioned, there is one more classmate of mine who's also working in the same organization as me. And sometimes every couple of days we have this discussion where we are like, this helped, like whatever we did in that group project helped. And it's just, I'm pretty sure everybody feels the same way. It really, really helps in your jobs.
Thank you so much. And I was actually speaking to one of our alumni who was recruiting from the school a few days ago, and he graduated 25 years ago, and he was telling me he still uses the MBA. So that's a great story at the other end of the spectrum. Anyway, I'm conscious of time, and I want to see if we have any questions from our audience. Idel, is there anything our audience would like to ask our panel?
Yeah, there is indeed, and I wish there was even more time. I think everybody's story about transitioning through careers, and how our panel have made some fantastic switches, from sectors and to different roles, has really struck a chord. So there's a lot of questions about that, but one in particular is about level. So when either leaving a role to take up the MBA and move away from a job, or indeed starting out on a new path, what experiences did any of the panelists have in terms of how, I suppose, their entry level into new organizations or new careers? And maybe if someone could show me a hand who would like to take that question, might be the best way to start, rather than asking. Ger, maybe did I see you not there? Great, thank you.
Yeah, sure, Idel. Certainly from my perspective, I was actually pleasantly surprised, because frankly, I was expecting to make a, given I was changing sector, that I was expecting that I would have to make a sideways move, and frankly, that didn't prove to be the case.
Yeah.
I immediately entered at a higher level than the organization that I'd exited on, and then that was pretty much backed up with a series of promotions over a pretty short space of time. So in fact, actually, it wasn't a case of having to drop a level to change industry, or even actually go sideways. In my particular case, it was immediately an opportunity to actually enter in a more senior role.
Great, thank you, Ger, that's great. John, you have a particularly interesting career move. How did you find it?
Yeah, I can echo Ger's experience there. Something very similar. I thought, coming from teaching, without the MBA, I wouldn't have even had the opportunity to apply for any of the roles in EY. but not only apply for them, you know, I was able to come in at a level where, you know, was much higher than I had initially anticipated. And then I think once you land and you start to demonstrate that you're more, as a result of the MBA, you're more than capable in working in a pressurized environment, managing difficult stakeholders and clients, that you're able to, like conflict resolution, all these kind of transferable skills are well honed, well refined, and that you're able to deliver these across multiple sectors. I think you're recognized very, very quickly and put on a kind of an accelerated development program. So, you know, I wouldn't be overly concerned about, again, I would emphasize that you do come in at a level that you will be excited about, but I think once you land, you quickly begin to develop and you accelerate up the ladder very, very quickly. And I suppose my experience, and I've recently moved to manager in Ernst & Young, is a fine example of that.
Great, thank you. Marjorie, is there anything in particular you'd like to add?
Yes, well, I was at a senior position, a director, and I went to a similar position as director. So for me, it was more enriching in terms of the experience, the confidence, in terms of our leadership classes that we've had, in terms of just broadening my horizons in terms of dealing with different people from different sectors in these peer groups, which I was not used to. I'm used to really finance strategy type people, and I had a mix of people. So that was really interesting, and that's been very helpful in dealing with my stakeholders at the moment. So yeah, I find it very enriching in many other ways, but in terms of position, I was already at a senior position, and it just gave me more confidence to just be promoted quicker going forward.
Super, thank you very much. Mark, I'm going to actually put you a question. There's a lot of our attendees are asking, is there any difference in service level from the careers office between the full-time MBA and the executive and modular MBAs, or does it apply equally?
So yeah, it was sort of on my slide. So it is more about kind of structure in terms of the full-time MBA class. You know, they come in, they're all looking for a job at the end of their MBA in 1 year's time. So they need a similar supports at similar times of year. So we would kind of, you know, start from the beginning around understanding yourself and what you're looking for, and then identifying opportunities and networking, and kind of move through the process and get, you know, interviews would be later on in the year and that kind of thing. There are some exceptions in terms of some early hiring and that kind of thing, but it's a structured process. With the executive MBAs, really because they don't all look for jobs at the same time. It's not like everyone comes in on day one and immediately, you know, wants to start looking for a job. Maybe that's something they actually want to not think about until after the MBA. We have a service, and we kind of tell you this is the service, and then, you know, when you need it, come to us. And you may not need, you know, stage one. You might not need help with what you want to do. Maybe you just come to us when you're ready to fire off an application, or when you want to find an alumni in a particular organization, or help with networking skills. And then we would, so really it's on the executive MBA side, it's more kind of one-to-one. So there's a lot of career coaching availability at when you need it. So we would have kind of opportunity to access us out of hours, and also there's a little bit more online content as well, because again, it's access when you need it, and you know, not necessarily in office hours, that kind of thing. I hope that explains the difference.
Yeah.
And also just to say that there's kind of, with the full-time MBAs, you get a lot while you're a student. I mean, we're still available to you as alumni. But with the executive MBA, you know, there's no difference at all when you graduate for the first year. You still have kind of full access to the service, because so many of our executive MBAs do, you know, look in that year after graduation.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much. I'm tempted to go back to Marjorie after her story, because a lot of the other questions are about time commitment and how much work is actually involved in undertaking either the executive MBA or the modular MBA. So Marjorie, that was a fantastic story, or insight into your life that you gave us. Maybe you could just tell us very briefly in terms of your experience of the time commitment required, and maybe then I'll just pop to Sri then to ask her as a full-time MBA, and I think Mark, then after that I'll hand back to you.
Yes, it's a very good question. Yeah, the only reason I was able to do it is because I had a very supportive husband as well. One little young baby after a year, and then another one. But yeah, it was very supportive. It also gave me an opportunity to, I was new to Ireland. I was always working, so it gave me an opportunity to meet other people. And I also love like the education, but the social aspect of the executive program, in terms of, because we were in a classroom with a great combination of people, great peer groups. I really enjoyed that aspect. So it gave me a few hours twice a week for myself, my own education, my building my own education and knowledge. And so without the support of my husband, I could not have done it, that's for sure. But yeah, I'm good at time management. Obviously, I still had a big international job that I was traveling with, and I was pregnant. But you just make it work. When you want something, you're determined, you make it work no matter what the obstacles are. I really truly believe that you just have to really want to do it.
Great.
You'll find a solution.
Thanks, Marjorie. And Sri?
Yeah, just adding on to what Marjorie said, like you really need to want to have the MBA degree, because I'm not gonna lie, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, it's a lot of time commitment. But the thing is, it's not the kind of work that will leave you frustrated. It's the kind of work that you look forward to. It's the kind of work that you want to do. You're gonna have a lot of group presentations. You're gonna have a lot of individual assignments to submit. And you'll have to kind of manage your career search. You'll have to look for a job in the middle of all this. And I think for me, the additional perspective of an international student and taking into consideration the visa restrictions and having to manage all of that. Thing is, you have to learn to manage it. But I promise you, it's not something that will leave you frustrated and questioning why you did it. It's something that's going to challenge you every day. And you're going to be happy while you're, I don't want to say suffering, but while you are really busy, you're still going to enjoy it. It'll be great.
Thanks for your honesty, Sri. Mark, I'll pass back to you.
Thanks, Sri. Yeah, I think someone was asking me the other day, they were saying, did the MBAs really learn like that much in a year, or is it half what you would do in 2 years in the US and that kind of thing? I was like, no, it's like the same in a year. So it's a lot of work. And I would always say to people, anything that you can do kind of in advance of starting the MBA to make your life easier when you're on it, do it over the next few months. And just to echo some of the things that we've heard tonight as well, again, particularly with a full-time MBA, a lot of students focus on, how is the MBA going to help me get my next job? And see that's the return on investment. But actually, often when we do these panel sessions, what we hear from alumni who are several years out is really, well, the return on investment isn't that, or it's not only that, it's like I've applied this then, to make me more effective in my next job and, to keep progressing throughout my career. But I'll end there. And I think we have now a Q&A with the rest of my colleagues.
Yeah, so I think Jessica, you're up next.
Hi there, thanks very much for Mark for the introduction. So my name is Jessica Dowling and I am the admissions manager and I look after the admissions for our full-time programs and also our executive and modular. So I am just going to very quickly share a slide with you. Okay, hopefully everyone can see this slide. It's very quick. So probably just one of the most important things that I want to talk about is I've seen the question come in, are we still accepting applications? And yes, absolutely, we are still accepting applications for our September 2021 intake. So applications for all programs are still open. In terms of information on what you need in order to apply, I really don't have enough time to go through it right now, but generally speaking, it's a minimum of 3 years work experience. You require an undergraduate degree or potentially relevant experience on a case-by-case basis. We also need references, a CV, and 2 letters of recommendation. We also do require a GMAT or an EA score, but what you can do is apply to the program in the first instance and then sit your GMAT or EA after. The full details are on our website and it's very comprehensive. So if you do want to find out more, you can check it out there. The first link here, so these then are just some useful links that I just wanted to include to highlight to people watching. So the first would be the MBA comparison table. So this was mentioned earlier by Sophie. So we do have 3 programs, and they are the same qualification. I should say everyone will end up with the same MBA qualification from Smurfit, but really it's how they're delivered is the difference. So if you visit that page, you'll see the differences between the 3 programs, how they're delivered, and what might be the best option for you. And always, as it goes without saying, if you do have any questions at all, please just get in touch with us, and we're always happy to do profile evaluations and to help you individually. I also very much recommend checking out the Smurfit School blog. This is a blog that's updated by actual students on the MBA program, whether full-time or executive or modular, and it gives an insight into the day on the life of a real MBA student on the Smurfit MBA. So it's great to get an insight from current students themselves talking about the program and their experiences, because really, you know, they're our best ambassadors and they'll give you the best insight. So that is updated regularly, and I definitely recommend that you check it out. The GMAT and EA has been mentioned a few times. These are standardized tests which look at your quantitative and verbal reasoning skills. We do run free prep sessions that concentrate on the quantitative skills. So these are run on Zoom. You can log in from wherever you are and follow along with Jerry, our colleague who runs the sessions. If you go onto smurfitschool.ie/events, you'll see when the next sessions are coming up. There's another 2 planned, and they take place on a Wednesday evening on Zoom. So they're free to attend for anyone who's interested. And they're a great way, if you haven't, you know, been exposed to these type of exams before, just to get a flavor of what they're like. Of course, email if you've any questions or if anything is unclear, or you want to find out more, please do drop us an email. We're always happy to get back to you. We can also set up calls and Zooms if you want to speak to us as well directly. And we're also happy to put you in touch with current students or alumni, because obviously, as you can see from the panel today, our alumni are fantastic. They're really involved, and you know, it's a great way as well to learn maybe from someone who has a similar profile to yourself. And then finally, and sorry, apologies, this is so brief, but I'm just conscious of time. A very good resource, I would say, is our webinar page. So over the last year or so, all our events have been online, which means that they've been recorded, like this one tonight. So we have had other webinars where we've concentrated more on other topics. So for example, we have webinars specifically about the full-time MBA, more focused on our part-time options. We also have webinars that have been masterclasses, or webinars that have focused on women and the MBA and applying, from the female perspective as well. So they're a huge source of information, and I definitely recommend you check them out. So that is very, very quick, and that's all.
Yes, sorry, just one more question there. You just want to address, there was a couple of questions on whether we would be on campus or online from September, if you just want to address that.
So at the moment, I mean, we're very hopeful to be in person. That is the plan, I believe. So we hope to be in person, but obviously we do have to follow government guidelines, but obviously everything at the moment is looking very positive that we will be back to full face-to-face teaching by September. Okay, so I think now I'll just hand over to the panel, and we will kind of take some questions, Adele, if that's okay.
Yeah, great. So just while all the Smurfit team are turning their cameras back on and their microphones back on, just want to take a very brief opportunity to say thank you to John and Ger and Marjorie and Sri for your contributions. That was really fantastic, and we could have spent another half an hour with you just chatting and taking questions, but time is moving on. So we're going to move on now to some of the more, I suppose, practical questions that have been coming in from people who are obviously thinking about applying. And the first question actually is, I'm going to actually direct this one to you, Elaine, if you don't mind. It's because we've used the words recommended for senior professionals when we're describing the executive MBA. What do we mean by senior in that context? And as such, then, is there a minimum or a recommended professional level of experience or years of experience in order to qualify for the executive MBA?
Thanks, Adele. We would just recommend for the executive MBA that you would have a minimum of 4 to 5 years experience, whereas for the full-time, 3 to 5 years experience would be acceptable. But for the executive, we do tend to see older applicants, and they have a minimum of 4 to 5 at a minimum, really.
That's great. And it kind of connected, but maybe Jessica, you might take this one. Brendan is asking if there is a different acceptance criteria for people who are going for the various MBAs. So different acceptance criteria for the full-time versus the 2 executive options.
Yeah, of course. So one, as Elaine has just mentioned, is around experience. So it does tend to be applicants for the part-time options do have a little bit few more years professional experience. Not the only main difference criteria is in terms of the GMAT or the EA score. The full-time program does require a slightly higher score, so details of all that are on our website. And then in terms of how competitive it is, all three programs are competitive to get a place on. I do recommend early application, and I do recommend looking at what we look for students, and kind of reviewing all of that before. But absolutely, if you've got a great profile, if you feel that the MBA is the right decision for you, you can always chat to us first, and then we're more than happy to help you through the process as well.
Yeah, great. And lots of people took a lot away from Fintan and Eilish's leadership development program overview. There's a question here specifically for Eilish, which is, do you actually use the communication style exercise to decide who goes into what groups at the beginning of the year?
So we do use the communication styles exercise, but we use them within the groups after they have formed. So it's not a questionnaire that we use prior to assigning students to groups, no.
Oh, very good. I think people were afraid they were going to end up in a group of panthers possibly, and obviously would need to adapt their style accordingly. Great. There's actually a very specific question here about the ACCA qualification, Elaine, which you said you'd like to answer live. Can you just tell us a little bit about that?
I actually didn't. I saw the question, but I didn't know what the person actually meant.
Okay. All right. Well, what I can say is to the person who asked that question, if they'd like to email us. Yeah, exactly, to email us. Or indeed, if anybody has any other questions that they feel haven't been answered this evening, they can just email us directly. And I think that's everything that we have for this evening. And at this point, I'll pass back to Sophie, if that's okay, Sophie. And we might just take it from there.
Yeah, no problem. No, I just wanted to really say thanks to everybody for your time this evening. And I suppose this concludes the MBA webinar. And I'd like to remind people, obviously, that they can, as Jess mentioned as well, you can email mba@ucd.ie, and you can watch some of our previous webinars by going onto our website, smurfitschool.ie/webinars. So we have, if any more questions come in, we're happy to kind of field those questions. Please feel free to get in touch with myself or Jess, and through that email as well, some of my colleagues. You can find our details on the Smurfit School website. So I think that's really it. We could probably answer questions for a long time, but I think we need to wrap it up at this stage, given it's 8:30. And thanks everyone for joining us, to all the panelists and to all of my colleagues, and also to all of our participants. We've had great attendance, and I suppose one of the advantages of these virtual sessions on a rainy night is that a lot of people turn up, so that's really, really good, and we're delighted with that. And we hope that, I suppose, tonight's session has given prospective students a flavour of the MBA, and that if you're considering joining us, that you do get in touch, and you may even consider doing the MBA in future years. So once again, just to say a big thank you for everyone's time this evening, and we hope to meet you in person sometime very, very soon. So that's goodbye from us. Thank you.
Bye-bye.